Hello，欢迎来到商业英语 Career Plus 的 Podcast。在这边，我们利用多年国际职场与教学经验，带给大家最真实与贴切的职场英语知识。Hi, my name is Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. I've trained thousands of working professionals to communicate in cross-cultural environment. My clients hail from Dior, Yahoo, Deloitte, and other Fortune 500 companies. By leveraging my business background in tandem with my master's in education, I instill the logic and soft skills necessary to succeed in a global business environment.
Hi, I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've trained hundreds of startups, SMEs, and publicly traded companies to speak with eloquence and gravitas on the global stage. Through Presentality's programs, startups have gone on to raise tens of millions of US dollars in funding, SMEs have secured partnerships with Fortune 500 companies, and senior managers have stood on stage at some of the most well-respected conferences around the world.
欢迎来到我们 Podcast 第4集。那我们今天要继续延续我们上一次所用的 STAR 的原则来回答我们 interview 的问题，也就是我们一些behavioral 的 question。那上一次我们特别用 STAR 来凸显我们的 cross-cultural communication 的这个软实力。那我们在今天我们想用另外一个软实力，再来继续用 STAR 的原则来回答这些问题。
This week, we're using the topic of time management. Reason being is everyone has these experiences. Everyone needs to manage their time well in order to move their career forward. But this is a really hard question to answer. It's really hard to dig out a single example. So this is another case where, again, STAR becomes a really great method to pull out an idea, make it sound convincing, and get your experience out there.
So let's do a really quick refresher on STAR. How's that?
All right. For those of you who joined us last week, or those of you who are just joining us, quick refresher on STAR. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result.
所以我们situation 就是我们的情景，也就是我们这件事情的一些背景状况。
Yeah, very simply, what happened?
Exactly, what happened? So now task 就是我们的任务，也就是比如说你在这个职位，你应该要完成的什么。
Yeah, what were you asked to do? What's the challenge you need to overcome?
那再来就是我们的 action， 也就是我们的行动。任务跟我们的 task 不太一样，就是这个地方是你真正做了是什么，你的行动是什么。
Yeah, what did you do? What actions did you take? How did you overcome the challenge?
那最后一个就是我们的 result， 也就是结果。那这个地方我们在上个 episode 也有讲到说，这个结果并不一定要是 positive， right？ 它如果是比如说这件事情你做了什么事情并没有成功，你也可以解释一下你从中你所学到的是什么。
Yeah, a lot of people always confuse result with success. I always must show success. But a lot of times showing growth or showing something that you have learned or a lesson that you took to heart in the future is more important than your successes.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point to show growth. And that itself, I think it's a very good soft skills to have when you're working in a real life situation, because you know what? You're not always going to be, succeed. You're not always going to have successful cases, right?
Yeah, and companies know that. I mean, yeah, you want to talk about what you have accomplished, but in the end, showing that you can grow in a company and that you can help a company grow and that you can learn is more important than being ultra successful.
Yeah, and recognizing your own flaws, I think that's actually very powerful. And Nick just mentioned that time management skills, it's something that's really hard to find example for, and I definitely find it really hard for myself.
Yeah, I mean, with time management, it's one of those skills where if you do it right, you don't actually have a lot of examples of you doing time management because you have a system. If you do it wrong, it's, how do you pick what one is wrong? So this is something that companies really kind of push you on, which is how do you manage your time? How do you prioritize? So having a way to answer this is really important.
Right, and I really recommend that everyone kind of prep this answer before any interview. Yeah. So again, we pulled out 2 very commonly asked questions about time management.
Our first question is very simple. How do you limit distractions? This is usually what, puts us behind in our work or gets us, stressed out is when we can't sit down, get something done, we get distracted, phone, etc. The second question that we pulled out, why do you think it's important to manage your time well? And the key to this question is actually they're looking for your mentality, your logic, or how you process time management.
All right, very interesting. So I'm going to actually take the first question.
Yes, so Sherry, you're in the hot seat. How do you limit distraction?
Well, that's a very good question, Nick. And I think limiting distraction is crucial, especially in this day and age, especially with the pandemic and working from home. It's really something that everyone needs to work on. And when we all had to kind of work from home, due to the pandemic, I definitely faced a lot of distractions, especially when I was working from home. My kid was only, 5 or 6, and she had to be home after preschool, and my parents were helping me out. So there are a lot of people in the house. Therefore, there are a lot of distractions. There are a lot of noise. There are a lot of people saying different things. So the thing is, work doesn't really wait for anyone. You still have to get things done. So what I find was very useful is actually to figure out a system. So for me, the system that works was create a timetable for myself, and you actually stick to it. What I actually had to do is put the timetable on the door of my study and actually put that, on the calendar so that everyone in the household can actually see that, and kindly ask them to respect my time schedule. I think that's also very important. So having that time schedule really allows me to not, answering, look at my Facebook or playing with my daughter or answering, extra questions from my parent. But also I think having that time schedule really allows me to kind of carve out time, like 2-3 hours a day, just to dedicate that to my daughter. So then again, you can kind of have a more defined work and personal life, even if I was working at home. I think the results was relatively positive. I think it was definitely very difficult to do, and there's a lot of constant communication with everyone in the household. But yeah, definitely helped me a lot during the time.
Great. And throughout your examples, we can see each piece of the STAR. So the situation you described is with COVID. There was a period where it was recommended everyone works at home, but you also have now elementary school aged daughter who is there with you, who needs attention. Your parents are at home, and anyone who's ever lived with family members know that they are constantly looking for you or they need you to do something. So this context, the situation is really clear. And so the task is again, it's not some specific task people gave you, but it's a general thing. It says, I have to keep my productivity up. I have this challenge of continually producing good work while put into this sort of more chaotic situation. So the action that you took, I think, is that timetable, right? You actually kind of scheduled out your time a bit more. And the result is that you were able to maybe not find a balance, but you were able to get through that current situation back to now we're, back in the office, but you were able to push through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So a really nice, clear example of STAR.
All right. So now it's your turn, Nick. Here is the questions. Why do you think it is important to manage your time well?
This is an important question to me because we always sort of look up to these superstars, right? But the reality is everyone has 24 hours. Elon Musk has 24 hours to run 3 global leading companies. And a fresh college student has 24 hours, which means is I think the most successful people have found a way just to organize their time. It's not about having more hours in a day. It's about how you spend those hours and how to utilize these hours effectively. Previously, my first company that I started was a co-working space in Kaohsiung. And at the same time, I was consulting for a company that had me constantly traveling on the road. I would fly to 13 different countries a year, plus I would run my own co-working space. So this is a time where literally every moment of my day was filled by something. And I really had to learn how to prioritize my tasks and responsibility, both as someone starting their own business and also maintaining my consulting work for other companies. And what I found, very similar to you, is that I needed to actually track all my to-do list. If I didn't write it down, no matter how good I thought my memory was, if I didn't write it down, there's a very big chance that it'd be gone. And I still use that today. So then I used Evernote, now I use to-do lists and Notion. And I also started to track my time. But really creating a priority list of my to-do list mattered, which meant because I was traveling so much, if I was in person, I was in my co-working space, I had to prioritize. I don't answer email, I don't answer the phone, anything that involved me being in person, talking to my business partner, talking to the people in the space, planning out events. I had to prioritize as in person was in person. When I was on a plane, this is a great time to catch up on computer work. Why? Because no one's there to distract you. So really creating this priority system of when do I work on certain tasks? When do I answer emails? When do I answer phone calls? Help me organize so that I could do these two things. And it was a really stressful year. It was really busy, but the results showed that creating this priority list worked out. My co-working space ran over 100 events and about 30 different workshops in 1 year. And at the same time, I was gone every single month to a different country, going to trade shows, going to conferences to do my consulting work. And I was still able to run all of these and, for the most part, keep people happy because I created a really strict priority list to my time.
Sounds very impressive. But what Nick said, again, he used a STAR. So very beginning, he talked about the background, how, everyone has 24 hours, and also at the same time, what kind of task or what sort of situation he had to face at a time when he had to manage his co-working space and also doing consulting work. He had to fly around, and how do you really maintain, to kind of have that balance and also kind of prioritize. So in the action, he talked about how he prioritized his tasks, have a to-do list, and kind of tracking everything. And the results shows that, he successfully ran, how many, 300 plus, 200 events?
Like in about a 2-year period when I'm doing all this flying, we had over 200 events. We ran dozens of workshops, and I was doing my consulting work. I was visiting 12 to 14 countries a year and flying all the time. Now, I don't recommend anyone does this, but for me, that was a moment that prioritizing how I interact with people, making sure that my to-do list is clear, and even spending some personal time, it mattered.
Right. So that's a very good example, and also using STAR to kind of answer and provide example to show that he has the ability, he has the soft skill of time management.
So we hope that this example of STAR is another way that you can think through soft skill. And this methodology can be used any skill. This can even be used for your technical skills. If someone asks you for your technical expertise, beyond just saying, I have a certification in, say, this programming language, or I have a certification in this methodology, but actually pulling out a solid example of how did that work? What was the situation? How did I interact with a client? What training did I give them, and what was the result of that training? This is just a really great overall methodology.
对啊，所以我也同意。那刚刚 Nick 提到，就是说，其实这个我们的 STAR 的原则，它可以用在非常多的不同的情况之下。就算你可能要回答，比如说你的 hard skill、你的 technical 的一些能力，你也是可以用 STAR 去回答。 那所以我觉得这个原则真的是大家常常要去多做练习，而且你在你 interview 之前，你真的要好好的做你的功课，在每一种不同的 soft skill 你都有一个大概的一个回答的方式，那其实我相信你的 interview 绝对不会有什么问题。
So, in the next steps of our interview series, we're actually going to cover 2 skills that, at least in my experiences, people really fail to do. It's 2 things that are really important. Asking questions back to the company that's interviewing you, and also sending a follow-up. After your interview, how do you handle interaction with the company?Absolutely.
我发现非常多的人在他回答所有的 behavioral questions 或者是一些 technical questions 他们就觉得可以放松了可以走人了，所以常常都会忘记说其实你也可以问对方问题，而且你问的问题你问什么样子的问题其实是可以有大大加分的作用。当然还有就是最后 interview 之后的 follow up 的问题，所以请大家 stay tuned， 我们在之后的 episode 就会 cover 到这2个非常重要的点。
We'll see you guys next time.
All right, so keep listening and keep learning. I'll see you guys. Bye.